Greetings, loyal listeners. You are now listening to an encore presentation of a B30 mini talk session. So please stand by as the previously recorded podcast will begin shortly. Thank you once again for choosing B30 for your listening pleasure. I was reading up on an article written by Christopher Abel. When is it time to work? When is it time to wait? I basically boiled down today's topic into a two-part question, and I'm going to set it up like this. When faced with a tough life decision, whether it be career or academics or, like having children, you basically have two thoughts on your mind. Number one, the first question you ask yourself is, I don't know if I should wait for a sign or guidance or an answer from God before I can proceed and make the right move. So that's kind of the first question you ask yourself. The next question is, when should I put matters into my own hands, so to speak, pull the trigger and make things happen for myself? I mean, in a North American culture that we live in, that's kind of how things work. You want something, you go get it, son. You make it happen. How do you reconcile these two aspects of your life, where should I wait for an answer from God or should I show some initiative and make my own reality kind of thing? So how do you reconcile those two thoughts in your head? Let me tell you, if you're at work and there's a promotion, internal hire, you really want the job, you've been at the company for a long time, this is your chance to move up. This is one of those questions you'll probably ask yourself, when you have prayer time or something. I want that promotion. But do I put my hands together and show some initiative, or do I wait for God to give me an answer kind of thing? Or what if there's a condo in a good spot of town and you had your eyes on it for a while and all of a sudden people are placing offers on it and you don't want to lose that chance. But at the same time, the decision is sudden. You don't want to uproot your life and start moving your stuff. How are you going to get that all together? It's like, I don't know. Do I wait for an answer from God, or do I just go for it right now? I need an answer kind of thing. And same for if you're at school and you're choosing schools, and do I choose a program from that school, or that school has a better internship program? I don't know which one. Wait for God for an answer or pull the trigger right now and just make a bid for it. So do I work or do I wait kind of thing? So it's a time-sensitive issue, because the significance here is, say we analyze the situation, lay it out all on the table. So you have two scenarios. One worst case scenario is, say you decided to play it safe and wait for God to show you a sign or give you an answer, but it didn't really come. So in real life, you probably didn't make a play for the promotion, or you probably passed on the condo, or you didn't decide on time for admissions into a school or whatever. But it was justified because you weren't sure with yourself whether you're being selfish or whether you're doing it for God kind of thing. But the reality is this: when you wait for God and the answer doesn't come, how the real world sees you is you were basically indecisive. You were basically a poor planner. You mismanaged things. You didn't do your due diligence. You didn't research. And what you're basically doing now is you're using I'm waiting for God as an excuse for your incompetence and failures. Don't be throwing out those one-liners like, I didn't get this, or I didn't get into that. Everything happens for a reason. Or it just wasn't God's will. You can't throw God under the bus like that. So that's one worst case scenario, where you wait for God and nothing really came about. And not only do you look stupid, selfish, unprepared, and mismanaged your life, now you're throwing God under the bus. So that's kind of worst case scenario one. Worst case scenario two, you take the initiative and you're like, screw it, let's just go for it. And you ambitiously work towards that goal or objective that you've had in mind. But here's the thing, you fall on your face and things didn't turn out the way you thought it would. For example, say you finally got that promotion, you got more money, but it's more hours, and say there's more travel involved. And next thing you know, your family life suffers. Maybe your health takes a little dip. You get less sleep and you got those raccoon eyes going on. Or what if it's the condo scenario? You're 3 days in and you realize something else better just got relisted on the market, and you're like, crap, I already signed the dotted line. I'm committed to this condo I bought right now. No, maybe I should have waited for God to give me an answer. Instead, I jumped the gun. Or what if it's school? You passed on a better internship program and you went with the school with a better professor, but then it turns out that professor is not teaching the class you wanted. I don't know. They're worst case scenarios. You jumped the gun. You made a decision on your own.
didn't wait for God and things didn't turn out. Now you realize you were being impatient. You didn't wait for God, and now you look selfish, and you look like a really shallow, materialistic person, like you're just going for personal wealth and prestige. So when you wait and it doesn't work out, you look like an idiot, and you use God as an excuse for your mess up. On the other hand, when you take matters into your own hand and don't wait for an answer, sometimes you could fall flat on your face, and you look selfish, and you can be considered, quote-unquote, unchristian. If you're like me, and I come across these decisions pretty much on a daily basis, I have no idea what to do. And what's interesting here is there are two accounts in the Bible that actually support both sides of the argument. So take your time, read over these passages that I'm about to throw at you, and reflect and discern on your own. So the first one is from Genesis 11, verse 1 to 9. It's the account of the Tower of Babel or Babel. So this is the approach that is thumbs up for waiting for God. The context here is God created the earth, humanity existed, they screwed up, he kicked them out of the garden, then sin spread like fire. It was so bad that God had to flood the place and press the reset button and kill humanity, so to speak. And that leaves us where we are now, Tower of Babel. The survivors of the flood at this point in human existence have one common language. They decided to show a little teamwork, unite in a common purpose, and build a temple tower. And it's these tall towers that have a square base, and then it has levels, so it reaches really high to the sky. It's basically like I guess you can say a stairway to heaven kind of structure. On the surface, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, Seems justified to pursue a very grand project. But the problem here is the intention of the people. The underlying motive behind building this kind of stairway to heaven is they wanted to build for themselves a city, a temple tower that reaches to the heavens, with the result that they may make a name for themselves. That's probably like chapter 11, verse 4 kind of paraphrase, because they didn't want to be scattered over the face of the whole earth or whatever. So as a result, God was like, all right, you think sky's the limit, so to speak, for you guys. All right, bam, snaps a finger. They all start speaking different languages, and then they all just went their separate ways. I guess the moral of the story is when you don't wait and you march ahead with your own goal-oriented actions, you don't have God's approval because God wasn't in the picture. In what way does your little stairway to heaven glorify God or further his purposes or witness his character to his kingdom or to others on earth? From this standpoint, it makes sense that if you got your promotion or whatever, and you got your increased salary, or you got into your prestigious school, or you got that sweet condo, but so what? How does that benefit the church or ministry? How does it enrich the lives of others? Did you gain those things just to make yourself look good, so people know you're an accomplished person, that you have your life in order? When you're faced with the question of do I work or do I wait, it's more of a question of, is this an opportunity for you to take pride in your achievements kind of thing? Or do you truly have God in the picture for your decisions in life in general? Anyways, if you're not a fan of the wait for God kind of approach to life, well, I just want to show you there's a biblical account in the Old Testament outlines why waiting for God has its merits. Try to avoid that godless ambition. Actually, another thing to point out was the person that wrote an article that I was reading up on, Christopher Abel, he actually proposed a theory about that Tower of Babel thing, because if you read from verse 1 to 9, they built the tower out of bricks instead of stone. Do a little referencing and read between the lines. They didn't have stones in the Mesopotamian area back then, so they used bricks. So when you use bricks, you need brick makers or bricklayers, and we need brick makers and layers. That basically means you need slaves. Now, there's no scriptural or scholarly evidence to suggest this, but it's just something to think about, that sometimes our goals, we might use people in the process. And in this case, in terms of the Tower of Babel, they had to rely on slaves, maybe exploit them and oppress them to build their little self-absorbed or self-grandiose goals of building a tower. Just something to think about. Did you have to stab someone in the back and then use their neck as a ladder to get to where you want to be? Because if that's don't wait for God and jump the gun, and that's what you're basically doing, then you got a lot of soul searching to do, so to speak. Do I work or do I wait? It's more of a question of who benefits from the change that comes about from the decision I make. Am I the only one benefiting, or are other people hurting? That's just one little thing to think about as well. I get it, okay? We have to be cautious about our self-ambition. So I guess the default answer is I guess we're better off waiting for God to just bring people and opportunities into our lives. But That's not the case, because Jesus in the New Testament doesn't seem to think so, that we just sit on our hands and wait for things to fall into our laps. For those who are into the let's get after it, let's go make things happen for ourselves, there is an account in the New Testament that supports that kind of mindset. And not support, but kind of correlates somewhat together. And that would be in Matthew 25, verse 14 to 30. It's the parable of the talents. But I think it's important to outline the context first. This parable was positioned in the book during the Passion Week. So it's basically a term to describe, it's the week where Jesus' arrest, trial, and death are all around the corner when this parable is being told. With that being said, when Jesus told this parable, he's being all like cryptic and foreshadowing his own departure, and he starts hinting that when he goes away, he's going to come back. So that's kind of the context of the parable of the talents. That's what's going through Jesus' mind as he's telling the parable. Basically, a master gives his 3 workers a certain amount of money. The first 2 workers doubled the money they were assigned to manage, and the third guy did nothing with it. Again, I want to state, the context and the theme of the passage is about how devoted Christians should conduct themselves after Jesus is gone. You should be waiting for his second coming without being lazy or without doing nothing or being idle. So the goal is don't be idle and doing nothing and just sitting on your hands and waiting for God to come. Because verse 13 provides some more context where you need to keep watch because you don't know the day or the hour I come back. So when you read this parable on your own in detail, this passage is not about God being a greedy, money-grubbing jerk who exploits his servants and treats them in a cruel manner, all right? Because when you read the details, the master's like upset that the third worker didn't make any money and took the money away from him and gave it to the first guy who made the most money. So on the surface, it looks like if the master is supposed to represent God, it makes him kind of look like a greedy, money-grubbing jerk. But the thing is, it wasn't so much that the master in the parable was pissed at the third guy for not making any money. He wasn't mad at that. He was more upset with the fact that the third guy played it safe. He let fear keep him from acting. Now, I want to be clear, the passage kind of implies he was being lazy or uninspired, but from my interpretive standpoint, I think it's more of a question of he was waiting for his master to do it all. And it's this very entitled, things to fall into your lap kind of mindset. And he didn't even bother, with the money he was given to manage, put it in a bank and collect interest. He didn't do that because he was playing it safe. He let fear keep him from acting, and he was waiting for his master to do it all. So for those who are the pro, go after it, make things happen side, here's an example where waiting for God can be used as an excuse sometimes. So what this means is when you pray and you're waiting for God for an answer or something, guess what? You can do your part. You can be a hardworking, honest person who's showing initiative and ready for more responsibility or development. The key here is you can go for it. Just don't waste your potential. But at the same time, you got to have that balance. Don't waste your potential. You can go for it, do your part, but is there some godless ambition as well? At the end of the day, you gotta really check yourself and weigh both sides. Okay, so let's wrap this up. In the 17th century, John Wesley taught that earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. So if you want to get your hustle on in the present day and you have that the world is mine kind of attitude, I'm ready to go after it, that's cool, man, go for it. Because you don't want to live with the regret of asking yourself a couple years down the road, what if I did go for it? If only I tried, you don't want to live with that regret. So go for it, man. But just make sure it's not a godless ambition for empty wealth and prestige. If you're still not sure and you're more of a play it safe kind of person, then also, hey, don't let fear keep you from acting on your passion. Don't be that third worker in that parable. So be a hardworking guy, be honest, don't waste your gifts, and don't let fear of failure kind of hold you back. And more importantly, don't use it as an excuse, or use God as an excuse for that matter. I guess it's God's will, it didn't happen, or everything happens for a reason. I guess that sums it up. Go for it, but don't have godless ambitions in your mind. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.